Hello, learners. We are going to be reading the article A Trip Through Africa. It's actually a journal entry, and it's teaching us the ways energy flows through ecosystems. I may or may not be able to read this all in one video. I only get 10 minutes, so I'll get as far as I can, and then we'll go from there. So, A Trip Through Africa. Day 1. We drove for hours from Johannesburg, South Africa, to a lodge outside of Kruger National Park. As we got closer to the lodge, we spotted our first animals in the distance. A group of zebras, which our driver called a harem, were gazing on the tall grasses that are plentiful in the area. We arrived at the lodge near dinner time and unpacked for our adventure. During dinner, we met the other guests at the lodge and learned a little history of the park and the wildlife that can be found within. After dinner, our guides took us on a night safari ride through a reserve. We all loaded into what looked like a giant SUV with no doors, windows, or roof. The safari vehicle had only 3 rows of bench seats open to the night air. Once we were all seated, our driver took off at dusk with the cool air whipping across our faces. On the drive, we saw tiny eyes glowing back at us as our driver shined a spotlight into the darkness. We observed several different species of antelope that are common in this area, but the spotlight scared most of them away before we could identify them. As we were riding, our guide received confirmation that 3 lionesses had been spotted stalking and killing an impala, a species of antelope. The driver immediately went to the area to observe the interaction. As our guide shined a spotlight, we noticed that the large cats were not feeding. Instead, 8 small lion cubs were enjoying dinner thanks to the hard work of their mothers. We sat close enough to observe the feeding and these beautiful animals for quite some time. At one point, a lioness walked right by our vehicle. She could have easily attacked us since the vehicle offered no protection, but instead, she sat with the cubs and monitored their feeding. With all the excitement of this evening's events, and the rare chance to observe lionesses and their cubs, I cannot wait to see what else the safari adventure will bring. Day 2. We woke up bright and early to head out to Kruger National Park. As I read the welcome brochure, I learned just how massive the park is. Kruger covers 19,500 square kilometers in South Africa, so it is larger than the state of Connecticut. At the beginning of our safari, our guide explained that we would see many different types of organisms and that we should be on the lookout for Africa's Big Five, which include the African lion, African elephant, Cape buffalo, leopard, and rhinoceroses. He explained that the Big Five category was created by hunters who considered these animals to be the largest and most dangerous animals to hunt on foot. Today, all the animals are protected in the park, and the only shooting that happens is with a camera. The first animal we observed on our drive was the tallest land animal, the giraffe. We watched 6 of them for a long time. Their long necks moved gracefully as they pulled leaves off trees. Our guide explained that a group of giraffes is called a tower, and that these animals primarily eat leaves but also enjoy fruits when they are in season. Nearby, a herd of impala grazed on the plentiful grasses. As we drove, we came across a lone male elephant known as a bull. He paid no attention to us and continued to rip apart a shrub with his trunk. While we observed the massive animal eat, I noticed insects on the shrubs. Some insects were consuming the nectar from the shrubs, small flowers, while others were munching on the shrub's leaves. When I pointed out the insects to the guide, he explained that different species of insects have particular diets. Some get their energy from different parts of the shrubs like flowers and leaves. Other insects prefer parts of certain trees or grass, or they enjoy eating the many fruits that the region produces. After lunch, we observed a variety of small birds in many colors and designs. Some of these species were eating grasses and fruits. Others seemed to prefer the many insects that could be found around the area. We also saw a herd of several species of animals, including wildebeest, gazing on the plentiful grasses. Zebras seemed to be around each corner, and we startled a group of warthogs that scurried away as we passed. My favorite part of the day was when our guide noticed a large animal in the distance. We had to remain in our safari vehicle for safety, which made it difficult to see what was going on. I got my binoculars out of my pocket and observed a dog like animal feeding on a dead springbok. Our guide explained that this animal was a jackal. Jackals hunt and kill small birds and small mammals, such as the rock hyrax, and they even work together to kill impalas. They are primarily scavengers, though, and will even try to steal another animal's kill. Day 3. We were up before the sun came out to prepare us for the morning hike through the reserve. At dawn, we set out towards the river in hopes of seeing some hippopotamuses. Along the way, we observed firsthand the vegetation common to these parts of Africa. The grasses, which many animals rely on as primary food source, were tall and dry. The grasses were gently swaying in the faint breeze and soaking up the sunlight. We startled a springbok that was grazing as we made our way to the river. Our guide pointed out that a variety of trees, including arcata trees, that are common in South Africa. Apparently, giraffes, elephants, impalas, zebras, and even insects enjoy different parts of these trees as part of their diet. As we continued, we walked near the area where the lionesses killed the impala on our first night safari. The lions no longer were there, but we could see a couple of large birds. I reached for my binoculars to take a closer look and saw what a guy called a white-backed vulture. These endangered birds are the most common type of vulture in Africa. They are scavengers and use their slightly curved beaks to feed on the bodies of any large mammal, from a springbok to an elephant. As we approached the river, we saw large bumps that looked like rocks. They were the same color as the river water. We saw more of these bumps foraging in the grassy banks next to the river. These large bumps were hippos. More than 40 of them were sitting in the water, and at least 8 more were on the bank. We sat down on a large rock, observing the animals as we ate our breakfast. Our guide explained that these large mammals spend up to 16 hours each day in the water to keep cool from the hot African sun. As we ate, so did some of the hippos. Apparently, these massive animals eat up to 35 kilograms of grass and other plant material per day. Most of his food is consumed at night when they come out of the water. Hippopotamuses can be very aggressive, so we did not get very close. As we walked back to the lodge, we saw many kinds of birds and insects, too many kinds to name. Our guide stopped us to point out the fruits on the ground from a marla tree. He explained that these fruits are a favorite food source for elephants, giraffes, rhinos, and kutsus, another type of antelope. The animals even help the trees reduce by eating the whole fruit and dispersing the seeds further away from their parent plant, when they defecate. Speaking of waste, we witnessed a couple of dung beetles on the walk. Just like their name suggests, these animals feast on animals' feces, primarily from animals that eat plants. Our guide explained that a male and a female beetle work together to create a ball of dung much larger than themselves, up to 50 times their weight. Then the male will use its back legs to roll the dung ball to a safe location where it can be buried and then munched on in the future. Meanwhile, the females hitch a ride. The beetles have to be careful while on the move. Small birds called hyraxes, warthogs, and even jackals will not hesitate to snack on them. As we returned to the lodge, we hopped in our safari vehicle and headed to a new area of Kruger. Our afternoon trip was short but eventful. We started off observing 1 male and 2 female lions lounging on the rocks. We learned that females do the bulk of their hunting at night and work together to hunt and kill animals that are much larger than they are. The lion's diet consists of animals such as zebras, kutsus, Cape buffaloes, springboks, impalas, wildebeest, giraffes, and elephants. I will stop at this point